Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Are You Screening podcast. I'm your host, AreYouScreening.com's own Mark Eastman. And with me, as always, is co-host extraordinaire Shane Leonard.
Hello.
And this week, we're going to hit The Gorge and Conclave. And The Gorge because it's new.
Yep.
And Conclave because there are a certain number of movies that people think are in the top 10 that we ought to cover before we hit our list.
Yeah.
And so speaking of lists, I feel like, and this is rough.
Good. Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And my plan is to actually try to be real this year, right?
Yeah.
Because, normally I would say next week or in 2 weeks or something like that. And so what I'm going to say actually this time is 3 weeks from now.
Okay.
We're going to do our best list.
Okay.
So I'm hoping in that time to get through a bunch of stuff, especially because awards season is we're in the thick of it. The Critics' Choice has already happened.
Yep.
And the Oscars are right around the corner. And in terms of a lot of things that have been nominated or even that won. And like the BAFTAs just happened,
right?
Conclave won,
yep.
Which I thought was kind of funny because it won like best British and best, and everyone was like, "That hardly ever happens."
Right. This must be the one, the anointed.
So anyway, but getting through the time, I want to try theoretically, to cover a few movies that are at least, bigger, kind of things. And so then we'll have our best list, our worst list, and our awards.
Yeah.
The Can't Win Awards. Be sure to tune in for our amazing awards.
Yeah.
But this year, I do want to say, and we got, like I said, we got two movies that I really kind of think deserve a little bit of coverage anyway. So I don't have a lot of babbling to do beforehand. I think we'll probably just get into it. But I do want to say this is a very interesting year. And, every year I say is like a weird year or whatever. But this is a interesting year because the Critics' Choice anyway, and to a certain extent, the Globes and the Oscars are, everyone's got the same favorite movies or whatever.
Right.
But if you looked just at the Critics' Choice, because that's convenient for me, this is a weird year where, I remember talking about this not too long ago, that, 20 years ago or more or whatever, most of the things that would get nominated or win Best Picture were either just the biggest thing that ever happened and everyone saw it or whatever, or some movie where the man on the street was like, screw you, movie critic people. I mean, you know what I mean? It was some kind of
it was like a rebuke of
it was just like there's this divide between the Oscar movies and movies people actually wanted to watch.
Right.
And that has really tamed, I think, in recent in the last 5 years, especially, but over the last 10 years, it's become a very different landscape. It's not like, even the King's Speech going back a ways,
a while. Yeah.
It was, kind of in that ballpark, but not quite. You know what I mean? Yeah. People did see it. It
was accessible.
It wasn't quite the sort of movie where it was like, people just were not going to watch it.
Right.
Best Picture, hooray. I mean, I'm not watching that dumbass thing. Or, your hoity-toity.
Right.
Whatever, right? But this year, man, everything that was nominated in the Critics' Choice was normal people rolling their eyes.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Going, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
And it was weird. Yeah. And if you look at people's best of the year lists that are already out there, you used to get, and even like very recently, there are some things you could read and find their best list, and it's like, you know, I don't know, AFI or the New Yorker or something like that, where you could read their best like 20 of the year and maybe have heard of 3 of the movies because they're all like, you know, this documentary
super
or
art house
something, this like psycho art house thing that, you know, screened in the US one weekend at one theater, or you know, just like crazy
to meet the
criteria
stuff,
and this year I was kind of shocked when the nominations came out, not because there were necessarily all these, you know, there were like 10 awesome movies that I was like, where are these, but just to really go back that direction, it, you know, was kind of strange. And I thought it was really funny because shout out to the Critics' Choice Awards, Sacha Baron Cohen was giving the brutalist crap during his little, he did the speech of giving out the Best Picture. And he said, I had this movie offered to me. I won't say which one it was, but it seemed like the most boring thing in the universe. But good on you for
good on you for seeing what I didn't.
Anyway, so when we do our list, it's gonna be a little weird, I think, and for me, it's not gonna have a lot to do with the things that are nominated for award shows, mostly anyway.
Normally,
it's just very strange.
Normally, our lists are a bit different because you'll cover the things that you've seen throughout the whole year, and we don't really do a big percentage of that because you see so many more films than we have the time to cover anyway. As a reaction to that, I've tried to obviously do. And I see films that we don't cover too, but I tried to flip that over and just say, well, my list will be based on the films that we covered for the most part. Every once in a while, something has to just break that. Like it's too good, and I can't not be a good list if I ignore that. This year is going to be really strange for me because of the way that we were allowed to see screeners and to see films both in the season and normally what we would have done. I probably have not seen... really probably haven't seen 20 to 30 of the films that are out there. And that is a gulf. If I'm current, there's usually that ahead of me anyway in your list, but now it feels like that is exponentially larger. So my list, when I started looking at it a little curiously a couple weeks ago, I went, geez, this is going to be rough. Not to defend, but to defend. Because I can only work with what I've got. And if I saw a bunch of Paul Blart films and I didn't get to see, Shadow of the Dog, hey, this is the list we're going to have. So anyway, more about that when it comes up. That's where it's at. That's going to be a weird year for me.
Yeah, it is going to be weird, but even weirder is going to be the worst list.
Yeah.
The worst list is...
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the worst list.
Are you?
This
okay.
It's going to be fun this year. Yeah.
That should mean something to everybody.
There are so many movies that I hated.
There's a lot of films.
And I really enjoyed hating them.
Yeah.
That is very unique experience. But
I always feel like when we talk about the worst list, I always feel that it's sort of like when George Costanza's dad stands up at Festivus and he's like, I got a lot of bones to pick with you people. Like, there's just so many.
Yeah.
I got a lot of problems with all of you people, that kind of thing. So,
all right. So jumping in, I think we'll go in the order of doing the Conclave first.
Yeah.
So the Conclave, like I said, it just won the BAFTA. It's nominated for everything in the universe, and everyone says it's fantastic. And I just have to throw out, as you pointed out, because this had missed me. I don't know, because I don't have my finger on the pulse of whatever.
Right.
But apparently, like when this first hit
Yeah.
or something,
Yeah.
there was all of this comparing the Conclave to Mean Girls.
Right.
And it's like, it's Mean Girls just with priests.
In robes,
or
right,
whatever,
with priests, yeah.
And so, I mean, we'll talk about that, I guess, in a way. I mean, I went back last night, actually, and I kind of like watched it again, like on fast forward,
Sure.
sort of.
Yeah, because there's a lot of exposition.
And I was like, okay, come on. And I'm like, at like the furthest reaches of like the most minimal outline of what happens.
Right.
Kind of.
Barely.
Maybe.
So, I'll address this too. Every once in a while, there's like a weird idea in pop culture, and I don't know who starts it, but someone does, and then it kicks up and just weirdly gets traction. What I texted you about it was, like the Mean Girls reference, and you're like, it's about priests. And I went, yeah, but there's supposed to be a thing. And I went, I think I'm misremembering this now. You had caused me to really think maybe there was something else. And when I just typed in Conclave Mean Girls, like I got hits all over the place. It looks like it could have easily also been, Raging Bull Mean Girls. Like if you just take a still from the movie and you just have like Pesci and De Niro like in the still, and you're just like, stop trying to make fetch happen.
Right.
And it's just, if you just put that on something, now it's suddenly this comparative. And as far as I can tell, that's sort of how Conclave happened. It was so serious and so arty that someone's like, well, I'm going to take the wind out of this. Or as the British like to say, I'm going to take the piss out of this and just make fun of it a little with something that doesn't make sense. And I'll be damned if it didn't stick somehow for a small window of time when it came out. Because I kept thinking, if they made Conclave in the spirit of Mean Girls through a religious filter, that's going to be wild. That's really not the movie I saw.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I could be really pushed to find a thread that's there, but it's not that obvious.
Yeah.
It's really not that obvious. So I'm still mystified
Yeah,
where that whole idea came from.
It's like if you make the bullet point outline of both movies.
Sure.
And then someone says, okay, make your next draft with less bullets.
Right.
And then you do it again.
Right.
And then do it again. And you've only got like 3 bullets.
Right.
And then you go, look, that's the same
There it
movie.
is. I did the same one, right?
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Anyway.
there is
It's got
sort
a
of
weird
stuff.
It's just got a weird small tagline for people that were paying attention. And,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
don't see it.
All right. So Conclave, it's, as I'm sure everyone knows, we're at the Vatican. It's priests. The Pope just died.
Yep.
And now it's like, whatever. The sharks are circling and hilarity ensues.
Right.
And you've got like your main sort of front runners and or hopefuls out of all the cardinals. And then to throw an initial monkey wrench in right away, Bob shows up and goes, I'm a cardinal. And, and you're like, what? So it turns out that he was sort of secretly made a cardinal.
Yeah.
By the Pope, and there's like, whatever. There's official paperwork. It seems really weird, even as the movie starts out. But then there's, Lithgow is one of the front runners.
Stanley Tucci.
Stanley Tucci is his character is such a weird thing in this movie because he is the guy that you're led to understand many people want.
Yeah.
Except at no point does he get any votes. It's like
Right.
he gets like 15 votes once, and then it's like, oh no. And then there's this other guy.
Tedesco.
Yeah, who is like the
He's the Italian fire.
He's the bad guy, basically.
Yeah, right. He's the bad cardinal.
And there's another guy who is kind of also the bad guy, or he's like not, like the movie is like the liberals are the good guys, right?
Right. Yeah.
The priest who is adamant about the church really being opposed to other religions, and being like mean to them,
right,
is one bad guy.
Yeah.
and the one who is super against homosexuality and like any
Right.
kind of, you know, whatever kind of strides the church may be trying to make towards more inclusivity.
Yeah.
Like he's super opposed to that. He's the bad guy, right?
Yep.
So the movie is very liberal, focused in like what is good,
Right.
which is just like the weirdest, most horrible thing about this is our Catholic Church movie. Anyway,
Yeah. Right.
but so like hilarity ensues, secrets come out, people are the front runner 1 minute, and then the next minute no one will vote for them.
Yeah.
And it in that sense, it is really like there's 180 people
right.
in high school locked in a room,
Right. Right.
having like a voting fight,
Yeah.
or whatever. But you know, all these secrets come out. Just various things happen so we, you know, the winds are shifting one way or the other all the time, and it's
Right.
like one vote, some guy almost makes it. The next vote, he gets 4 votes.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, how do you get those 4 votes? Or,
Every single time they show the vote count, that's a high school thing, not a Mean Girls thing, but they all look like they've been kicked out of the lunch table. Like they're all just sitting by themselves like,
Right.
whoa, what did I do?
right.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing. So as far as jumping in and getting ratings out, this is a hard movie for me as a critic,
Yeah.
because on the one hand, right, it is a really, really well-made movie.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, it is the dumbest jackass thing
Yeah.
that I've almost ever watched. My true experience of watching this movie is really kind of being flabbergasted that this has any basis in reality.
Right.
Like, this is a thing. These are actual people. This is the head of a religion.
Right.
Like, and I don't mean anything to do with the plot.
Right.
I mean all of the stuff that is 100% real.
Right. That this is how grown people would act.
Right. That, and not like in the plot, just like, I mean, it's just like, I mean, I'm not Catholic, even though some like weird technicality, I was married in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, you're in.
So take that. But like the parts where they, all of a sudden things will shift. Like things are switching all the time, right? It is, despite the fact that it's just a bunch of priests talking to each other all the time.
Right.
It is a movie with a lot of like, you're watching this one scene and here's where we're going. And man, the next scene is just like, bam, like we are in a whole other world.
Needle drop or brakes screeching.
It's crazy. So, but there's this one part where you're kind of going along and you're in like a comfortable place. And then all of a sudden you get to, and this is like a little bit later, you get to this scene where all the cardinals are in their most fanciest gear. With the big
the
things,
real
and
big
they're all
things.
sitting there.
Yeah.
And we like are kind of blurred as we see them, and then we kind of like pull back, and then we see like all of them.
Yep.
And I go, shut your face. How can this be reality? I mean, no offense to anyone who's a Catholic out there or really loves the Catholic Church, but it just seems bonkers.
They love their dress up.
It's just so weird that
this is normal.
The stuff that goes on, and but anyway, so on the one hand, I have to judge this movie,
right?
And it's not like there's anything wrong with the plot, but I guess what would just be my personal bias of watching this like ludicrous nonsense happening at me is so weird.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. So it's very hard for me to try to come up with something because, looking at it through one lens, it's really a solid movie. It's got great actors doing great things. It's very well directed. Everything seems like so authentic, and Ray Fiennes is in it, and is awesome in most of the movie. I say like 95% of the movie, he's incredible. Anyway, and all the supporting people are great. There's one part where things I think get a little goofy, even for these guys. But it's funny how this movie kind of establishes the extent to which, like, these are goofy people.
Yeah.
And maybe
religion or not.
Maybe that's not what you're expecting. People in the Catholic Church maybe hate this movie. I don't know. Right. I didn't do it. The movie did it, right? I mean, the movie made them goofy, not me. I'm just saying it's just a fact about the world. They're goofy people. But there is one part where things get like a little goofy, and I kind of went, well, I mean, would they really be that goofy about it? Because,
right.
And I don't know. We can maybe.
I kind of want to know what part that is, but
yeah, I'll tell you that in a minute. But anyway, all of that to kind of gloss over the nonsensicalness of my rating, because because on the one hand I think it's great, and on the other hand, I really hated it because it's just so stupid.
Right.
So I could only give it an 8.
Whew, I was a little off there.
And
I was a little off.
Everything, from a totally objective stance, which is like, if somebody made the world's greatest like slasher horror movie, and everyone universally agreed that it was like the greatest one ever made, and I would go, but this is bananas. Right. So there's a limit.
You just get in your car?
There's a limit to how high I could rate you, right?
Right.
And for me, this is the same thing. And maybe it shouldn't be, and I should be giving this a 10 or whatever. Mm-hmm. But man, is it just cuckoo bananas. I mean, it is so bonkers. And some of the, it's nothing against the plot, because this is what you're doing and what you have to do. But some of the conversations are awesome, I think. And some of the conversations are just like, that just can't be. Mm-hmm. And if it is, you still lose, because I've just decided that that it can't be. You can't be that nuts in your movie. I don't care if this is a documentary about a real thing that happened with archival footage. It's like I can't rate that.
Right.
So that's all I could do is give it an 8. But also, I mean, it's really so good.
Yeah.
It's just that it's also really bad.
Fundamentally.
And on one hand, I feel like I should give it a 10. On the other hand, I feel like it's really lucky to get the 8, because I should be giving this like a 5.
Right.
Because it's just so donkey.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, that's my rating.
I just looked to see what the director had done. I forgot to do that, and I'm a little surprised, but not now that I think about it. Now that I see that he had just directed All Quiet on the Western Front, the one from 2 years ago, that makes sense now. Like, he's got a lot of talent,
which is so good.
It is, and it's. I mean, there's been 15 iterations of that film, and at one point, many years ago, I think I had seen all of them to that point. It's not like they remake it every year, but they remake that one a lot. I feel like the last one that I saw, Berger's film, was probably the best one I'd seen, except for the first one I ever saw, which was just awesome. But Conclave has everything that you said. Wonderful direction. It's got a cast that you're just like, you're sort of like, oh, we're going to do like a big talking political thriller, really, is what this is. It's religious politics, but it's a political thriller. I'm in. You put Stanley Tucci, you put John Lithgow, you put Ray Fiennes, like on and on. Get me there. I would argue that the vast majority of the scenes where people are talking are all fantastic. And there's a couple that didn't work for me that I was very surprised didn't, but the vast majority of them do. And then you make a movie out of that and it falls because it doesn't hold the way that the conversations do when there's a lot of, for me, bad choices in, I'm saying this all wrong. The beginning of the film doesn't dictate the way the rest of the film goes. The beginning of the film is very slow, but it sets up that the Pope is dead. We have to elect a new Pope. Everyone's coming. Wait, there are some problems. There's some secrets. There's some investigating. And I'm thinking to myself, this is like In the Name of the Rose. I want to see a cardinal, a bishop. I don't want to see them like spotlight unless they deserve it, like dragged through, the propaganda of things. But this is fascinating. How do priests investigate things when not many wiretaps are in the church and things of that nature? And I'm like, I'm up for this. It starts picking up speed, but it's so slow in the beginning. The music is absolutely atrocious. And I focus on that sometimes, but there are so many bad choices musically in the first 15 minutes. I was worried that this is going to be a trudge of 2 hours. It gets way better. But as it's getting better, it's not more cohesive as a film. The scenes are great by themselves, but the film just didn't work for me. And then eventually, without ruining anything, I will say that in films like this, sometimes you can have one surprise twist too many. I think they probably had two too many. They definitely, for me, had one too many. And I think it, not because of the nature of the surprise or the twist, that was irrelevant. I just didn't think that it belonged in the film that seemed to be, no pun intended, faithful to the process of what happens when a pope dies, and then the exposed insecurity, ambition, and vitriol of the men in charge of representing the best part of something.
Right.
That's fundamentally the part of the film that I was the most interested in, aside from all the characters too. There are scenes when I'm going on and on. I gave this a 6. It's a little better than average, and it's a little better than average thanks to Fiennes and Tucci and the others who aren't as predominant in this. It really leans on the supporting cast that aren't the super famous names in a way. Like there's a scene with Ralph Fiennes and one of the cardinals who is favored for a long time and then is told, look, you can't do this. It's not happening for you.
Right.
That scene I thought could have gone really weird, and it was powerful and effective. And then there's a scene later with John Lithgow, and I'm like, man, these guys are heavyweights. They're going to throw some awesome dramatic punches. That scene didn't work at all.
No.
And it fails in a lot of weird ways, which is, in essence, somebody saying, I know what you've done, and the other person is, no, you don't.
Right.
No, not, la, 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 la. And I'm like, the hell just happened here? That kind of scene after the halfway point happens a couple more times than it needs to. And it just sort of disassociated stuff. I wasn't rooting against the film ever, but I realized the sweet spot of this film, for me, is 20 minutes in to an hour in, when everything is sort of weird. And the thing that we didn't mention in the beginning that I found sort of interesting is they are sequestered. There's no information. There's no way to get things. There's a small way to get things out, but you really are stuck with sort of being on the train car and no one can leave. And you're like, well, I know one of you did this.
Right.
Let's suss it out. And everyone's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm just sort of like constantly rooting for the guy who is not built to be the detective in Dean Lawrence, who's Ralph Fiennes' character. He's just empowered by the Pope. And as he learns things through confessions and other means, it just becomes interesting to watch him get heavy. Like when he snaps when people are like, maybe you should be the Pope. And he's like, I don't want your vote. And then later when he screams it at someone, I'm like, man, he's breaking down.
Right.
And the clock, I'm blathering, but the clock is running because his main thing is to keep the appearance of the church positive. And he said, the longer we debate and deliberate, it looks like we're fighting. We have to make a decision quickly. And everyone's like, cool, then let's vote this guy. And he's like, well, not that guy. We know what kind of a guy he is. Well, what about that guy? Not that guy either. Now, wait a minute.
Right.
Now the politics kick in and they're in a pressure cooker. Man, what a great idea. And for the most part, really fun, but it just at the edges fell for me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get back.
Yeah, there are definitely parts, that aren't great in, I would say, just kind of the maneuverings of the plot itself.
Yeah.
Which for me don't take away that much from kind of the overall. I will say, like, the end,
Yeah.
I thought was basically nonsensical.
Yeah.
If the movie just ends right now.
But it doesn't.
But it does.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like the final twist that we learn about.
Right.
And then nothing.
Right.
Right. And then, I mean, the movie keeps happening for like 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, I thought that's, yeah.
But
right.
But nothing
But
happens. I mean,
right. The action is
he
done.
just stares out the window
Right.
and
Listens to the
whatever,
crowd.
right?
Yeah.
I think that would have been okay, although I think this is like a weird thing. But I don't think it doesn't work for me as a thing where we're just going to go, all right, and
fade out.
And now we're done.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Then I think it's, I think it's a little nutty, but I guess the idea that he doesn't do anything is its own sort of statement. Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, there are some parts that one scene that's in all the trailers with Tucci and John Lithgow, and
Yep.
he goes, but the conversation did happen or whatever.
Right.
That is a really weird scene.
It is weird.
The one before that, where he's talking to John Lithgow and goes, so what about this? And John Lithgow acts weirdly like someone who obviously did what he's being accused of.
Right.
And is not really trying to pretend that he didn't.
Right.
He just goes, well, what are you going to do?
You can't do anything.
Right.
Right. You have the same power I do.
Right. And he's
So
like,
what?
and we're sequestered here and you can't prove anything and
Right.
yada yada.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then again, I don't want to spoil too much, but the scene I was talking about is when we really finally give it to Lithgow. Right?
Yeah. Right.
And he delivers these papers.
Yep.
Again, I don't want to spoil stuff too much. And Lithgow kind of is like, right.
You did
whatever.
this to me to
Everybody is
smear me.
reading the stuff and everything.
Yeah.
And that part gets too goofy for me twice. And the first time is when John Lithgow goes, you only have these papers. And again, I'm totally kind of spoiling later in the movie stuff, so that sucks. But he's like, you only have these papers because you broke into the Pope's room or whatever. And the fact that he says that line, I'm like, that can't be.
Right.
I mean, like, first of all, who's that convincing about anything? What are you, like, I object to your rules of evidence or something? Like, we're all friggin' priests here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
you
like,
broke the seals.
it's like that.
Did
that
you do it or
just
not?
can't be a thing that guy would say.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the part at the beginning where he's like, no, there's all, I can explain this, or, this is nothing, or something, whatever the hell story he wants to have about it. The part where he goes, you only have these, like, you have these papers because you broke in and whatever, and otherwise you would never have these papers and people wouldn't know this and everything would be good. I'm like,
And they gloss over it.
and it happens really fast.
The room glosses over it. That's the thing that,
I'm like, that is nuts, right?
Right.
The good thing in there, though, is the good thing in that scene is when the nun starts
Isabella
talking,
Rossellini,
right?
when she nails.
And then Lithgow's face.
Yeah. That's the only part of that
That part
I dug.
is awesome.
Yeah.
But also the other thing is the Italian priest starts acting like an 8-year-old on the schoolyard. And I'm like, now come on.
Right.
I mean, we know that he's a bit of a character and he's, kind of boisterous and loud or whatever. But give me a break with this. Like, it was so weirdly like Mean Girls.
Yeah. and heavy-handed in a way that that we didn't need. We already understood. Even as a foil, when Stanley Tucci is talking and he's directly opposing him by saying, I am for more rights, more understanding, more forgiveness, more liberation. I want to bring women in. I want to let homosexuals have these things. He doesn't. I don't need to see Tedesco have a fiery, like, stereotypical, oh, I'm Italian, I wave my hands a lot, I'm speaking, I'm yelling, I'm loud. Like, I just think you hit Tedesco in the head and put his gown on. Like, you're not even this guy.
And the thing that happens in that scene with him is basically that there's names blacked out, whatever, and he wants to know. All he has to do is like say that line.
Right.
He doesn't have to jump around,
scream it, and
neener. I mean,
the Lithgow thing is interesting because it's almost like someone said, well, you would only have the smoking gun if you broke into my cabinet. What does that prove? You're the thief.
Right.
And everyone's like, yeah, he's a thief. And you're like, what? What?
Yeah, that was just weird. But I don't know. So those 3 things, especially those scenes, just did not come off. And the thing is, they're supposed to be like these big. Well, here's the big pivotal things,
right?
And it's like, here's these big pivotal moments, so everybody act like we're doing a stage play.
I was just going to say, it's very play-like, where you're all on your markers,
where
and
everything else is. You're in a completely different movie, and it's very weird, and I didn't like it.
There's a thing about that. It's funny it makes me feel like I was paying attention to. There's a thing about that scene, the lunchroom scene, actually. That's how it feels when the papers are brought out. And once Sister Agnes, Isabella Rossellini, who was almost, I hadn't seen her in a long time, she delivers this sort of killing blow.
Right.
And when she's done, it's not quite, it's so weird to think in such pop culture terms. When she delivers what she says in a room full of people that don't want to hear her unless she's been spoken to, she sets the room right. She resets their expectations. She recalibrates what everyone should be thinking internally, except the emotions and the greed of the moment of reaching the crown or the close. She bows. She curtsies. And it's that little curtsy that is sort of like, again, this is the dumb thing, but like there's a scene in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek where Spock is told he can go to the learning center despite his limitations. And he's like, what limitations? And he goes, you're human. And he delivers the famous line of like, live long and prosper. But he says it like, F you. Like he says it like, F you. Her little curtsy is like, y'all are wearing me down. Grow up, boys. And she bops out. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah, and right when that happens, then we look at John Lithgow's face,
and it nails it again because he sees like, that's it. It just happened. I can feel it happening, and I have no retort. And there are plenty of things like that in the film. For a film that sometimes really takes itself very seriously, it's very simple, but it was working through the machinations of like thinking that there was a labyrinth. It's just sort of a dirty path. There wasn't a lot of twisty, dark corners. It was men of ambition have secrets, and those who empower them are to be blamed. It's just, but it's still, once I got past the first 20 minutes, once somebody said before the Pope died, this person shouldn't be here, they were dismissed, and they're ignoring that. You're like, well, wait a minute.
Right.
There's some stuff going on.
Yeah.
And you realize the limitations of Fiennes' character, where he's really just like, I don't want to raise my voice. I have no power over these people. I'm just supposed to facilitate this whole thing.
Right.
But it's sort of fun watching it.
Yeah, it was wild, but it's great, and it's really cool. There's lots of layers of stuff going on too. You've got all these priests. Most of them have done bad things.
Yeah.
These are the people who are You know, like the one who we get that scene in his room where it's all of a sudden it's like he can never be Pope.
Yeah.
He's making all these statements
Yeah.
that are the exact statements of all the, you know, bad people
Yeah.
that he is opposed to,
Right.
or just in general. It's just like the whole, you know, the priests in their little playpen having the exact same story as,
Yeah.
you know, the guy on the street who is like, look, man, I made one mistake 20 years ago.
Right,
You're going to hold
right.
that against me? And it's
Yeah.
like, yep.
Yep. and especially
And
in
it's
the
just
fact,
cool with all the general parallel
Yeah,
of
right.
society and having this microcosm of people who are supposed to be
yeah,
someone to look up to. And
Right.
whatever. Anyway,
interesting film.
it's-
You know,
yeah. It's,
I would say, like you often say, if you look at the trailer and you think you're going to be, you know, all right with that, you're probably going to enjoy that film.
Yeah.
You may not love the end, but you're gonna like getting there.
Yeah, you're going to like it. If you think there's any chance you'll like it,
Then you will. Yeah,
if,
right.
If you watch
Yeah,
it,
I agree.
and if you watch the trailer and you go, no, then probably,
Probably
not, right?
You're probably not going to like it 'cause it's a lot of what's in the trailer.
All right, so we got to get to the Gorge,
yeah.
and we have to be pretty fast now.
Okay.
So the Gorge is Anya. What the hell? is
Anya
her name?
Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy.
Miles
and-
Teller, Sigourney Weaver. I think that's it for the most.
That's all the big names.
That's all the big names anyway.
So
yeah.
this movie, and we will go through this one fairly quickly, but this movie this is the most surprising movie I've watched. And I can hardly even think of it.
I wonder if I got your rating right.
Yeah. Because the trailer, and we don't need to go too much into it because if you've seen the trailer,
yeah.
it's hard to say that's exactly the movie you're getting, but it's pretty close.
It's pretty close.
Because you get about halfway through this movie, and then like we throw our cards in the air, and it's a whole other thing happening, right?
Yeah.
Which, you know, that doesn't really spoil anything. But there are parts in this movie that, you know, I don't know, are fantastically goofier than what you might get from the trailer. So that, you know, could throw things. But anyway, as a general idea, the trailer is pretty much what you get, except I have to say this about the trailer, right? I watched the trailer and I went, Jesus Christ, I have to watch that now, right? and
because it looked interesting?
No.
Oh, just because,
because it looked like garbage.
Yeah.
I was
man.
like, oh my God, look how stupid this looks.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I was like, how did they get them to be in this?
Right.
I mean, because look at how doofusy this looks in the trailer.
Oh, come on.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It looked like whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you can't take the trailer too seriously is my recommendation anyway.
Right.
But so they are people who have to sit on either side of the gorge in these bunkery, like tall bunker.
Yeah.
It's weird to say bunker, and it's like a raised thing.
Right,
I don't
it's
know
like
what
a
you call
watchtower?
that, but
You know?
yeah, it's like a giant
like a bunker.
concrete
Yeah.
watchtower thing where they're on opposite sides of the gorge,
Right.
and they have to watch it. And the interesting thing that I kind of wasn't expecting in this movie is that, like, kind of right out of the gates, they tell you what's up.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that's what was going to happen.
Right. I thought you'd learn it
I thought they
eventually.
were just going to go, you have to watch this gorge, and
Right.
there's something bad down there, maybe,
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But the guy who is giving Miles Teller his tour, he's like, there's like weird boogeymen down there or something. And Miles Teller's like, what?
Yeah.
You know, but they do actually just go, look, this is what's up.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that was where it was going to go. I thought
Right.
it was just going to be like a surprise.
Together
like,
they
there's
figure it
something
out
down
and-
there.
yeah.
I thought it was going to be sort of this thing like there's something evil down there,
Right.
but you know, nothing's happened in like 100
Right.
years or
Push
you know,
this
whatever.
button if
right?
something does. Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a different kind of a thing. But anyway, So they come from there. They're both snipers.
Yeah.
One's a ex-Marine sniper
Yeah.
who has been working privately.
Mercenarily. Yeah. Privately.
And Anya Taylor-Joy is the same thing, but she's Lithuanian and she works for the Russian government and whatever. And what happens is they are supposed to have no contact with each other.
Right.
But they, start holding up signs because they've obviously got tons of scopes and telescopes and binoculars and everything. So she starts holding up signs and hey, who are you or whatever. And he's like, we're not supposed to have contact. And anyway, they're there. They're supposed to be there for a year.
Right.
And so in the course of the movie, they're there for months and months and months and months, right? And you'll be watching the movie and all of a sudden it'll just go February. Yeah, and you're like, oh, shit, I forget what month it was a minute ago.
Yeah.
What is that? So, but anyway. And so then there is bad stuff in there and, hilarity ensues. That's like the movie. But it's the most surprising movie to me, and we're not doing this very quickly, but just to throw out the ratings, I thought I was going to hate this for sure.
Oh, yeah?
When I watched the trailer.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, my God.
Right.
Like, I don't even want to suffer this movie. Like, it's going to be like some completely dumbass
I'm going to
thing.
fold laundry while I watch this film.
And, like, I couldn't stop watching it.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool. So in the end, I gave it a 7.
I really thought you were going to give it a 4. I really had you at 4.
Which I think is funny because it's like, now here's a good structural thesis on our ratings, because it's like, so you're saying this is just barely worse than Conclave, which everyone says is the best whatever, and I'm like, well, no, that's
They're different. That's
not how it works.
That's not how it goes, right?
But
because not all numbers are equal.
Yeah, but anyway, I gave it a 7.
It's a 2-hour and 4-minute film. For the first hour, I was cooking at like 8.5. Like, I was having so much more fun with it, even though it is not terribly original. It is literally any scene like this, and in my mind it throws back to just Dawn of the Dead when they're holding up the dry erase board talking to the guy in the gun store on the roofs, and they're all communicating, and it's all fun. It's an old thing, but it feels very Rear Window-like in a very fun way that is only effective because Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy, when they are across from the Gorge, they have chemistry, which is sort of strange. Like, they have chemistry when they're 1,000 meters apart, right? And I like the way it's filmed. I like the pace. I like the story. It just was sort of like almost going to, people are probably not old enough to know these things, but we're old guys. You go to the video store and Miles Teller, who's famous 2 years ago and something, now has all these old films that he was in released, and you're like, direct to video, I'll watch that. Turns out it feels very direct to video, but it's a lot of fun. Then about an hour in, things, like you said, go out the window, and it's less fun. It's not bad. It's predictable, and it's strangely beautiful, but it very, very much just looks like a video game to me now. You have to, traverse across this weird, spooky bridge of danger, but don't touch anything, and if you do, you only have 12 rounds left, and it's just it's very strange the way it facilitates on. In the end, I found out that I had way more fun with something that I thought was just going to be sort of semi-disposable. I really liked the trailer, though. I like the idea that maybe this is or is not like the gate to hell and things are coming out of it and you need to keep people at bay. I don't know why you would only have 2 sentries over this thing. You'd have 40. But the more people you have, the more complications. It does delve into some weird, goofy stuff, and it definitely goes down some tropey kind of ways. Anya Taylor-Joy makes this relationship really, really work. And Miles Teller seems to really dig her unless they have to be touching each other. Every single time they kiss, He's like not into it. I don't know if she had onions. I don't know what it is. She's really into it and he's not. But there's a strange detriment here that begins even while I like the film that two seasoned professionals wouldn't act the way these guys do. And I don't mean talking to each other. There's a scene when they're sort of showing off for each other about who's got the better long-range shot.
Right.
And if I don't know anything about you and I just said, hey, have a good day, happy birthday, and suddenly you shoot at me.
Right.
I'm not going to just walk out with my arms up being like, hey, what the hell? I'm going to, from my PTSD, I'm sure, take cover and start returning some fire. But there's also weird things later that they make decisions when they leave their outposts that I thought no one who's ever been on a military expedition would ever do something like this. Like, you just don't do this. And then it felt like they might have forgotten that these were seasoned mercenaries and more like Romeo and Juliet. You know, there's some weird, we're young and falling for each other, so we'll not think clearly. And I'm like, but that would never, you just wouldn't have that happen if you guys had the kill ratio you do. So just kind of, then I'm annoyed that Superman's cape doesn't move right when he flies. Now I'm just sort of really picking at something, and I forgot because it led me down a road to forget how much fun the beginning was. I still think it's a fine film. I gave it a 7 too. But 7's that big gulf of like, man, it was really fun, surprisingly, or it's really strong. But there's some elasticity to that. For an hour, I was at 8.5, and it fell a little bit. I was really surprised how much fun I had with it.
Yeah, I legitimately could not believe like how much I liked watching it.
Yeah.
Because all during that first part where they're just talking to each other, the months are going by, they can only hold up signs at each other, and you know, she like dances over there, and you know, whatever. All that stuff was so weirdly well done. Yeah. For such a cheesy looking movie, right?
Right.
And my only huge problem, like I have two. One, and like you said about Superman's cape, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah.
But at the fairly early in the movie, and it's early enough that I can just say it and not really have it count as any sort of spoiler. Yeah, I think because it happens really quick. Right. Okay. So Miles Teller shows up. This guy starts showing him the ropes and goes, I just tell you this spiel for a day, and then I take off. Yeah. And then in a year, another guy comes, you tell him the spiel, and, you know, yada, yada, right? Right. But Miles Teller gets here, and once he gets about halfway through the explanation of it, right, anyone who has actually ever been there would go, they don't let us live at the end of this. Right. And I'm like, I mean, this is... Right. You know, the movie's just so horribly based on bullshit. There's no way that Miles Teller's character doesn't like immediately go, I wouldn't go if I were you. Right. Like,
I'd say right here.
They're going to kill you. Right. Right. I mean, it's just so lazily obvious.
Because you know, with that experience, you would know.
The situation that we've described and everything that's going on for... You know, since 1940, we've been letting people go, and nobody knows about this place. Right. There's no such thing as that, and they know there's no such thing as that. So they kill you at the end. I mean, there's no way. Anyway, but like I said, that he gets killed, super early in the movie. So
it doesn't give anything away.
Like I'm not spoiling that. And the other thing is, when they go down into the gorge, which I suppose is like.
It's in the trailer.
Spoiler, they go into
It's
the
in
gorge.
the trailer.
Right.
Like,
he falls
and she goes after him. So
it is such a weird freaking Willy Wonka Candyland. Yeah. I'm high on LSD version of whatever that's supposed to be. Right. I'm like, you know, it did seem like, you know, when you have like two video games that are about almost the exact same thing, right? Yeah. But one of them is like a semi-realistic version of this fantasy world we're in. Yeah. And the other one is like, we have like 8 times as many people in the art department as we
Right.
do in any other department,
Right.
and we're gonna draw some
Oh, yeah.
crap.
We're gonna make it
and
look-
everything's gonna be all freaky and
Yeah.
whatever. And I kind of was like, I mean, fine, but it didn't fit this, and
Yeah.
it was just too weird.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? Be weird if you want,
Right.
and have your weird people and your explanation for how they got that way.
Yeah.
And, there's, I won't spoil things, but there's like, hey, we're like messing with things we shouldn't mess with, and
Right.
this is what happened. And I'm like, okay, but you can do that all you want, and what happened is not a cartoon.
Right. Right.
It can be weird,
Right,
and it can,
right.
you can have your freaky explanation.
Right.
But I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
It was too much for me. And when we first got down there, I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to hate this movie now.
Right.
Like
So did I.
the first thing that happens when we get down there,
Yep.
I was like, well, one.
That was fun. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then it kind of becomes sort of okay, and it's not that bad. And then we get to a point where we sort of get over it, and we're at,
Yeah.
whoever the second unit director was got fired,
Right.
but we weren't going to refilm all that stuff.
Right.
I don't know. It kind of saved itself enough for me.
Yeah.
But man, there's like a 10-minute window in there where I was all but about to shut it off.
Me too.
Because I was like, Jesus,
I had
this is insanity now.
I had to look it up because I'd forgotten the Natalie Portman film that we saw where she's not a mercenary, but there's like a very strange thing, Annihilation.
Oh, yeah.
And I liked a lot of that until it got into the weird stuff. And I'm like, what did you do? This is sort of like that, where they thought, we'll make Silent Hill and Lovecraft and Hell and just create all these things that are dazzling to look at, but nonsensical and doesn't really follow their own science. But I
Right.
feel like someone had a fun idea, and then they're like, oh, remember that scene in Aliens when they're walking in the hall and everyone's like looking at the walls because they look like they're secreted and it's weird? Wouldn't that be awesome? Let's do that.
Yeah.
And remember this scene in this and that? It just feels like it's derivatively cribbed from stuff when, as a concept, it's interesting. The characters are believable enough, and their chemistry is facilitating. The story is fun when they get together too, but I feel like
Right.
they just sort of were like, so now what? What do we do?
And there's like such weird, cool
You know.
moments in it too. Even when, like when the little weird super drone thing
Yeah.
flies out,
Yeah.
and Miles Teller just goes,
Yeah.
I mean, like that's really cool.
That's a great-
Like,
that's a
there-
great moment.
There are really cool moments in there. But you can have whatever you want at the bottom of the gorge.
right.
But you can't have this whole scientific explanation.
Right.
And then like have somebody
then do
cast
it-
in spells.
Right.
Or, like you got to pick what you're doing.
There's a fun moment for anyone who knows about their films, but while they're doing sort of a back and forth, getting to know you through binoculars and stuff, there's a fun homage to her, probably her biggest thing, which is the Queen's Gambit, because they have like a big chess thing.
Right.
And then for him, it's been
The
the drums, and they're doing drums. And I thought, that's sort of funny. I wonder if people know that.
Right. If that's intentional.
I wonder if that's intentional or not. It seems like it had to be. Like they're both there. He's actually an executive producer for the film, and I saw that as the credits ended. So I don't know. That's just a fun throwback in there. I agree with you on, again, sort of the Conclave thing, which works a lot of the times. I think if you watch that trailer, and when I saw it, I was like, all right. Like if I'm in the mood for that, let's go.
Yeah.
Even though those kind of films can go off the rails any number of ways, I was pleasantly happy to look and realize, like, I'm halfway through this film and I'm loving this.
Even when
Like, how
even
fun
when it
is
gets
this?
to the part that, I think we've gone too far and we're down in the gorge. Even during that stuff, I was like, you know what? All right, let's go.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
what are we doing?
Sure.
And we're shooting at stuff, and
Right.
and I was like, it was so good getting to that point that and it didn't go
Right.
completely insane like I thought it was for
Yeah.
a second. And I don't even know why we had that, because
I
it
don't
doesn't
either.
really relate to anything. It's just
Right.
like somebody had a drunk sketch on
Yeah.
a napkin and
Yeah.
went, hey, this is a cool thing, and we'll get that in. But even, for a fuddy-duddy like me who
Right.
thought this was going to be stupid.
Yeah.
Man, it was so good.
Surprisingly fun.
It hooked me even to the point that I could forgive stuff for a while and let it have a chance to get going again. And then, you know, I guess most of the stuff when they're down there is fine. It was just some good action-y craziness. It just was things were a little over the top and what we had to do.
And part of the jarring part is the first hour works very well, even when they're separated, but it still works when they're together. And then suddenly now you're in a different environment, literally. And it just was like the beginning stuff felt better. It felt more solid and effective. This, I just have to sit through.
Right.
But
anyway, still, it's a good one, and I totally would recommend it.
I would recommend
even
that.
to people who would look at me funny when I've recommended it.
Yeah.
Because
It's a good time.
It wins out, and it's really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, we got to get out of here. Thanks for tuning in, and share, subscribe, like, whatever, and we'll see you next week.
Right.
Thanks.
Bye.